think we're live now. Awesome. Okay, we are live. And today on my Pivot Points live broadcast, I'm going to be talking about for executive directors, CEOs of any business, but especially nonprofit CEOs who I love the most, about how to deal with a situation where maybe you've gotten a little behind or you're feeling a little overwhelmed. The projects have started to pile up. Maybe some people in your office have been out. Maybe somebody left suddenly, leaving a bunch of extra work to do. Maybe you were sick or you were on vacation or you were out of town. Whatever has come up, and now you've got too much on your plate. You're starting to feel a little overwhelmed, a little stressed out, and hopefully you're not thinking, I'm just going to work harder and get it all done, because that is the wrong thing to do. So if you want to know the right thing to do, stay tuned. For those of you who don't know me, I am Sarah Olivieri. I am a former nonprofit executive director, founder, board member. I have also owned 5 for-profit businesses. I think it's 5. I better double check that. In any case, numerous for-profit businesses and coached many, many more. And it is my pleasure every week after my Thrive client coaching call to give you the top tips that came out of that call. Now, on the call, we go into much more depth, but these are a few of those tips just for you. One of the things that came up this week was what to do when you're feeling a little overwhelmed or you've gotten a little behind and the projects have started to pile up. There are 2 really important things to do here. So the first one is our kind of natural tendency is to just lean in and do more work, just get it done. But that's actually the exact opposite of what we should do. We don't want to just start kind of whacking balls as they fly at us. In that case, we want to actually slow down the speed at which the balls are coming. And how do we do that? We shift to doing 1 project at a time or 2 projects at a time. This is going to depend how big you are, but always doing 1 project at a time is faster than doing 2 projects at a time. You will get 2 projects done faster if you do 1 at a time. Same if you're doing 5 projects at a time, switch to only doing 2 projects at a time. It will be faster. Now, you may think this only applies to small 1-person teams, but that is not true. It applies to larger teams as well. And in fact, one strategy you can use is to actually, with your whole team or a portion of your team, whatever's appropriate for the size of your organization, have your entire team shift to working on 1 project at a time together, right? So the whole team is going to work together intensively, whether it's a day, 2 days, a week, 2 weeks, whatever's appropriate for that project. Everybody puts all their other projects on the back burner and comes together to work on 1 thing at a time. You will be amazed at how quickly you will plow through your project to-do list and get the more stuff done than you would if you tried to do everything all at once. We don't have time to get into why this works, but if you want to know, leave a comment and maybe I will address that next week, why this is such a powerful thing. The other thing to do when you start to get a little overwhelmed is usually at that point, our brains are starting to tell us that some things we have to do are urgent, which in fact are not actually urgent. So what I want you to do is just quickly, this is supposed to be labor intensive, just make a quick list, 2 columns or 2 sections, one of what's really, really important and urgent, what actually has a hard deadline. And the way you can ask yourself this is, if I don't do this, what are the consequences, right? Ask that question. If I don't do this, what are the consequences? If it's not like gonna, cost $1 gajillion, it might actually make sense to put it on pause, which is the other list of the things that are not actually as urgent as I was telling myself they were. So, some tips for this. So one way that we get into this scenario, telling us things are important, which are really important, but also urgent, they could be either, usually they're both if you're pushing yourself to cram through them, is you decide to do a project and you thought it would be an easy project, but it turned out it was a hard project, right? And it's got all sorts of problems. You just opened up a big can of worms. Be mindful of those projects, because when you set them as a goal or as a project that made sense for you to do, and you were anticipating it to be a small project, it made sense for the time that you designated it for going. Now that you know that it has become a large and complex project requiring numerous resources, it may not be the best time. And probably if you're already overwhelmed, it's not the best time. So step back and say, oh, can I just put this project on pause? Or maybe I'm saying I'm going to give it one more hour. And then if I haven't finished it, I'm pausing it, and we're going to revisit when we have full amount of time and resources to do it properly. Another way we get into this trap, this mindset trap of thinking we have to do something that we don't really have to do, at least not right now, is somebody else told us that it was important, and we just assumed they were correct, when in fact, they may not be correct. It might be important to them, but not important to you. It might cost a lot to them, but not to you, right? And so one of the ways that this can take shape is when we say, well, how much is this going to cost me? Or how much is it going to save me if I do this? And we might say, oh, it's cost $1,000. Oh, that's a lot of money. I could save $1,000 if I just got this done. But is that really a lot of money? I'd encourage you to think and really run the numbers. Is that really a lot of money? If you get paid $50 an hour and it's going to take you 100 hours to do this thing right now, maybe that $1,000 isn't a lot of money. If you focusing on saving $1,000 is actually going to cost the organization $20,000 in major gifts or sponsors, which is another thing you're trying to attend to, maybe that $1,000 is not a lot of money, right? Compared to $20,000 lost, losing only $1,000 is way better. So it's really important to be mindful that just because somebody else says it's important, and it could even be your board, right? Your board doesn't necessarily know, right? So just because someone else said it was important, just because somebody else said it was urgent, does not mean it's actually urgent. So be mindful and catch yourself, and don't get caught up on something. You need to decide for yourself. You need to run the cost benefit analysis yourself and make a careful decision about whether or not something is truly urgent, truly important, or both urgent and important for you. Those are my nuggets for today about what to do when you start to have too much on your plate. I'd love to know in the comments if this has been you, if you've tried one of these tips, has worked for you. What has your experience been? Have you been one of those people who said, I'm just going to get it all done? Did it work out like you hoped? Or did it leave you stressed, needing a break, which then created this kind of pattern of, oh, I got it all done, but now I need a break and now I'm behind again? What has your experience been? And as always, if you want to get the recording of these sent to your inbox and a written version of our weekly tips, the fly on the wall at PivotGround would be happy to send them to you. Just go to pivotground.com/sign up. The link is in the description, and we will send those to your inbox.